This podcast contains explicit content and is intended for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Don't say we didn't warn you. Welcome back, knockers. It's Hannah.
And I'm Madison.
And you're listening to Who's Knocking?
A true crime podcast.
That's right. So I have quite the case to tell you about today. But before we get into it, we do have a very interesting news topic to talk about.
Yeah.
Something very terrifying happened near us.
And very local. Yeah, very local.
Yeah.
Yeah. It in Toronto, in the area we call Leslieville.
Mm-hmm.
Which I used to live in, and other people we know currently live there.
Yeah, someone we know currently lives there.
A woman was found partially dismembered in a trash bag amongst other trash bags. And we heard about this in the morning.
Right next to the sidewalk, right?
Yeah. It
was in the afternoon, I think. It was like 1:30 or something.
Something like that. Yeah, I heard about it. I heard about it in the morning, so I don't know when it actually happened. And they were like trying to identify her. They were showing like she had a very intricate nail polish and like a specific shirt. They showed those things. And then later we found out that she lived in a building of somebody that we know very well.
Yep.
And currently they went and searched her apartment. They said there was some cause for concern, and they're looking for her son that she lived with. And she's a 40-something-year-old woman.
The son's missing, right?
The son is missing. They don't.
He's about 20, we think.
He is 20. And they're like, oh, we just want to make sure that he's found and he's safe and whatever. False. He's for sure a suspect, and I think he did it.
I mean, I hope it was him, because otherwise, who the fuck did that?
Yeah, and if he didn't do it, then he probably maybe he's dead. Right. So it seems like there would be less people dead if he did it.
Yeah.
But if he did it, his life is totally over, and he's 20 years old. So that's going to be just like that shitty.
Well, if he did it, he has a lot in common with the person that we're going to talk about today. So it seems like this happens.
Yeah. Oh, you're so right. That's it. Yeah, this is a really good intro topic, and it's horrible. Obviously, I'm a part of some Leslieville Facebook groups because I used to live in that neighborhood, and like there's a lot of people being like, "Oh, she used to work at this nail salon," and
that's fucked.
All this stuff. Like she was only in her mid 40s. It's terrible.
To me, it's so shocking too, because it's a pretty nice area of the city, and imagine just like walking next to the sidewalk and there's just a dead body in a garbage bag.
And it's a nice building too. Like we've been in the building.
Yeah. So
it's terrifying. I was actually born really close to that area. That was like the first home we lived in. It happened at Eastern and this other street. I don't remember which street, but I lived off Eastern as a baby.
That's crazy.
So
anyways, that's our local news update.
Yeah, and we'll keep you posted. Like this is an active search. They're literally searching for this kid right now.
Right.
And so like we'll fucking see, you know?
Yeah. And like we said, someone we know really well actually lives in that building. So it just feels like
on the floor, directly under the floor.
It's like we need to know, is there something sketchy going on inside that building? Is it unsafe, or is it just one specific person? You know?
My bet is that it was the son that did it. And so like nobody else has anything to worry about. But why, and where are they going to find him? I wonder. They're for sure going to find him. Like no 20-year-old is able to just like escape the police.
Right. Especially in this internet age. Like I'm sure they can track his phone and those kinds of things.
Yeah. And also definitely seems like the way she was left and dumped, I'll say, seems like a young person, like doesn't know what they're doing. She was partially dismembered. That's how they described it. So
I hate that.
Like he tried to dismember her.
Yeah.
And then like failed at it. And so like she shoved her in a garbage bag and was like, hopefully the garbage takes her. You know, it wasn't like a burial.
Oh my God.
It wasn't like
it wasn't planned out.
The person who tried to dispose of her was unsuccessful at the disposal. So that sounds like young.
That's terrifying. So,
and if he didn't do it,
yeah.
I'm so sorry. We're not
You're
saying you
cool.
did it. We're just guessing.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Anyway, so hope he didn't do it, I guess. I don't know, but
no, I hope he did it, because otherwise then there's more people involved. But anyway, also another fun fact that my friend Veronique, the head knocker, was saying, because she was listening to the most recent Charles Sobrage episode that we put out, which currently only number 3 is out right now, not number 4. And she was telling me, so we mentioned the Stanford experiment. Is it the Stanford?
Yes,
experiment?
The Stanford prison experiment.
I always get mixed up with the Milgram experiment, but she is saying that I think she was listening to some sort of podcast or something, and it was some sort of social scientist saying that they're like, the findings of that are being questioned because they were looking back at that experiment and realized like it's probably a lot more biased than they had originally thought, because they had like put out a thing asking for volunteers, and they're thinking that it could have drawn that type of person to the experiment, thus like making it not as making the findings less substantial or less like realistic or whatever.
That's possible.
I think our point that we were talking about still stands, because I think there's been a number of other
there's real life experiments. Yeah.
But I'd be really interested to see somebody try to redo that. I wonder if you'd even be able to redo that experiment.
Probably not ethically at this point, even.
And how would you even get people to do that experiment without divulging at least some bit of what you're going to be doing? Because I'm sure a lot of people would get in and be like, oh, no, I'm not down.
Yeah. And people would know anybody who's interested in that would probably know of the original one.
Yeah. I mean, you could call it something else, but yeah, as soon as you started doing it,
right,
they'd be like, oh, we know this.
We know what this is.
Yeah, I always get it mixed up with the Milgram experiment, which was also another really interesting one. And that one,
I don't know what that is.
That one was more like more correlative or more similar to, I think, like the kind of Nazi mindset.
Okay.
It was where there was 3 people in the experiment. One was like the doctor or lab person who and then there was the like button presser person, and then the person who they were put in another room, hooked up to a machine, and the person on the other side of the wall had to like they had to ask them questions, and when they got questions wrong, they would give them a little electric shock, and every time they got one wrong, they would up the voltage until it was like extreme. And the person on the who was hooked up to it, they were actually an actor. They weren't just a volunteer. The only person who was actually just a volunteer was the person pressing the buttons.
Mm-hmm.
And there was also a person in the room with like a lab coat being like, keep going. And no matter how much the person's screaming, the lab person will still be like, oh, keep going. It's okay. It's fine. And so they wanted to see how far people would take it. Because once you got to a certain voltage level, the person on the other side would be like, please stop. Like, ah. So they wanted to see how much you would administer high voltages, or you think that you're doing that based on somebody in a like alleged position of authority telling you to do so. And it was shocking the amount of people just went all the way to the end. And like, there's a big label being like high voltage, like you shouldn't do this, like warnings on it, and people screaming, and just like simple person in a lab coat being like, no, don't worry, just keep going. And they're just like, okay.
Yeah, that's pretty fucked up.
And that's just like, I was following orders. They told me to do it.
Yeah, there's probably so many experiments and actual true things that have happened that way.
Oh, Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting one. And I think that one was like it's a pretty like good experiment. I don't know, the breakdown of it, but it's pretty famous. There was a couple people who were like, okay, I'm not doing this. I'm not hurt. Like, this person is clearly in pain.
Yeah.
But a shocking amount of people were like, oh, okay.
That's fucked.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe that's a long enough intro. Maybe we get into it.
All right. So today we are talking about Tyler Hadley. If you know about true crime, you probably have heard of this case. You've heard of it, right, Madison?
I think so.
Yeah. So I'm about to tell you all about it. Won't get into too much here, but if you aren't familiar with this case, it is about a teenage murderer killing his parents. So, yeah.
Relevant.
Yeah. So you don't know that much about it, or you just kind of
I know,
know
like,
a little bit.
I know like the skeleton of it. Like, I think I know like
Okay.
basically what happens, but I don't know why. I don't remember the details.
Okay. Yeah. I don't really know why either. I do attempt to speculate about it, but yeah, it's not like
I'll
it's
tell
not a
you.
situation
You
of
tell me what happens, and I'll tell you why you did.
Okay. So let me tell you all about this. On July 16th, 2011, in the town of Port St. Lucie, Florida, 17-year-old Tyler Hadley stood behind his mother as she sat in front of the family's computer. Tyler was wielding a claw hammer.
Lee, what is a claw hammer?
It is one of those hammers that has like a claw thing on the back. We'll have a photo of it on YouTube.
So like a regular hammer?
I think some hammers, they just have like a hammer on both sides, and one has,
right.
This one has like a claw on one side. So Tyler stood behind his mother for 5 minutes, making a decision. And then, without saying a word, he brought the hammer down repeatedly on his mother's head, completely bludgeoning her while she screamed, "Why? Why?" Isn't that fucked?
I just like a hammer to the head is so, it's not quick, and it's just like smashing your skull. You're probably hearing the sound of your skull just being like broken into pieces.
Yeah. And it's your child who
That
came up behind you with no warning. So Tyler's father, hearing his wife's cries, ran out of the master bedroom to find the horrible scene. His father, huge man, 6 foot plus 300 pounds, but might have been in shock because his son overpowered him and started to attack him with the hammer as well.
Do we know how big this Tyler kid is?
He's tall too, but he's really skinny.
Yeah. He said he's 16.
17.
Okay. Yeah, so 300-pound man, like
he's huge. Yeah,
aggressive to take down.
He took him down. While Tyler was beating him with the hammer, he also asked why. And Tyler actually responded, "Why the fuck not?" repeating it over and over while he murdered his father.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Shortly before, at around 5 p.m. that afternoon, Tyler had hid his parents' phones so they couldn't call for help. He had then taken 3 pills of ecstasy, and he'd gone into the family's garage to retrieve the claw hammer.
So it's like completely premeditated.
Completely, yeah, step by step. Shortly after that, he threw a house party.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So you may be wondering, Madison, how did this all happen?
Yeah, why? Why the fuck?
Yeah. Let's set the scene. So this case took place in Port St. Lucie, Florida in July of 2011, like I said. Mm-hmm. But let me tell you a little bit about this town. I'm going to tell you a quote from Nathaniel Rich in his Rolling Stone article about the case. Quote, "On a warm summer evening in July, there was absolutely nothing going on in Port St. Lucie. There was never anything going on in Port St. Lucie. It had 6 golf courses, twice as many assisted living homes, 7 funeral homes, 2 bingo halls, and a shuffleboard club."
So there was old people.
Yeah, just like it's built for old people. So there was no access to the beach, no downtown, and no place for teenagers to hang out at night. Even the parks were closed at night. End quote.
They close parks at night?
I guess. I don't know. I don't know, actually. But so basically the town was created as more of a retirement community, but as the population grew over time, the demographics had changed. And by the time of the events in 2011, more than a third of the people living there were under 24. So
that is crazy that it's like basically built for retirees, and it's just like a bunch of young people. Like, what the fuck are they supposed to do there?
I know. It is like pretty weird, right? So basically, like the Rolling Stone article, which is kind of like a main source for this case, there's a lot of information in it that everyone talks about. It's very good. Recommend it. But yeah, so in that article, it really emphasizes the fact that there wasn't really an infrastructure in the town for teenagers or any type of like, activities really for them. And basically there was like a lot of young people. And throughout the article, there's like quotes from different teens all being like, there's nothing to do in this town.
Yeah, that is a recipe for disaster and teen pregnancy.
Yes. Well, so according to the Rolling Stone article, there was a quote surprising amount of crime in the town that was being committed by all these local teens.
Yeah, it's like why that's not a surprise.
They have nothing else to do, so it's like mostly vandalizing, destroying things,
but murdering your parents,
property damage and theft,
a little much.
It's a step above that for sure. So anyways, basically painting the picture, not the most exciting town to grow up in, clearly, probably not the most opportunities for kids, like hobbies, activities, sports, like doesn't really seem like there's a lot of that stuff going on, which I think it is interesting. I think it plays a role in what happens. So I did want to start off by telling you all about that.
Yeah, no, for sure.
However, let's get into talking about Tyler. So Tyler Hadley was born December 16th, 1993, same year as us. Yep. To parents Blake and Mary Jo Hadley. His father, Blake, was a watch engineer at the Port St. Lucie nuclear power plant, and his mother, Mary Jo, was an elementary school teacher. Both his parents were really well-liked people. They were respected in their communities, and as far as we know, they were loving parents as well, which...
Interesting.
Yeah, maybe off, just from surface value of this case, maybe we wouldn't have expected that.
Yeah, or maybe they were like secretly fucked up, but
yeah. Well, I'll tell you what I know about them. So
okay.
Yeah. But so, okay. Tyler also had an older brother, or has an older brother, Ryan, who is 5 years older than him. And at the time of the events of this case, he had recently moved out for college.
Okay.
But Tyler himself, so Tyler was born a month premature when, after an already challenging pregnancy, doctors decided to induce Mary Jo to give birth. I guess there was like issues with him developing, so they induced her labor, and he was born at only 3 pounds, 10 ounces, and he had to spend a month in the neonatal intensive care unit before he was able to go home with his family. So, I think that's kind of interesting. If he had to spend a month away, that's an important time to probably develop like his first attachments.
Yeah. I feel like nowadays specifically, they try really hard if your baby's in the NICU to like make sure your baby's like getting to touch you and stuff and whatever.
Yes,
but
yes.
Maybe back then, and like maybe in the specific spot, who knows, like maybe they didn't get to do a lot of that. That's definitely could be a contributing factor in like somebody's
I've heard it's huge.
Upbringing.
Yeah, I've heard that early contact, especially like skin to skin contact, is needed for babies to develop proper attachments.
Yeah. And I mean, like, look, I think
maybe it did happen. I don't know. But
I think too, like, you scare people sometimes when we say like, it's good to get skin to skin contact right away. But I don't think like a lot of babies come out and like they're not breathing or whatever. So they have to like take them away for whatever reason or have issues.
Yeah.
I think a couple minutes or like a little while is not going to hurt anything. But if you're left somewhere for like a month and you're not
as a baby, right?
Exactly. And you're not receiving any skin to skin contact, and you're not like getting eye contact and like closeness to your mom, like, yeah, that's probably going to leave a mark.
So yeah, that happened. And so one thing as well as a young child that we know about Tyler is that he was a chubby kid. He was kind of short and chubby. And I don't know if he actually got teased for it or not. I haven't read anything super concrete about that, but
I mean,
apparently
I'd imagine so.
Yeah, maybe he did. And his mom actually put him on human growth hormones as a kid because she wanted to give him more confidence so he wouldn't be bullied. So she had him on human growth hormone injections as a child.
And what are those supposed to do? What are those?
Make him grow more, I guess.
Like grow taller so that
I guess so. Like, I think that's steroids, essentially, like human growth hormones, what people take when they're taking steroids.
So you said that his dad was like 6 foot and 300 pounds. Was his dad like obese, or like, was he just really
I think just a big guy. Yeah. He just looks, in the photos, he just looks like a tall, like big guy, but not fat.
Right. Okay.
But Tyler apparently throughout his life, or at least his early years, really did fear being fat. And he's known to have actively struggled with eating disorders throughout his young life. So
yikes.
that's always something people talk about too.
You don't hear so much. I don't think I've ever heard of
in this case, I mean,
with the eating disorder. Yeah. I know it definitely happens, but it's
Adam Lanza, actually, the Sandy Hook school shooter, also had an eating disorder. Oh. And Tyler kind of reminds me a lot of him. Like there's a lot of psychological similarities between the two, just like compulsions and like weird behavior kind of. Yeah. And also parents who just like don't really know what to do, to be honest. But yeah, so that's another thing known about Tyler. But by the time we will get into like everything that happened at 17 years old, he wouldn't be chubby anymore. He was actually really, really skinny. He was 6 feet tall and only 160 pounds. Oh, so shit. Yeah, so he'd grown up to be like tall and thin, but I think he like continued to struggle with eating disorders. So maybe that's why he was really thin.
It's so funny when teen boys like hit their like growth, because they just grow so exponentially and so fast, and then it's like, you were so skinny.
Yeah,
I remember when Aidan was a teenager, he's like trying to eat so much to like,
yeah, my brother weight. Too. They had to eat so much.
Yeah, and like all the freaking teen girls are like trying to lose weight. It's like so annoying.
Yeah, that is annoying.
Like Chris, like when you look at pictures of him as a teenager, he's like the exact same person, but like half the size.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened here too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so throughout his childhood in Port St. Lucie, neighbors would say that Tyler was like a relatively normal kid, but later on, family members, like people who are closer to him, would admit that he struggled with depression and anxiety and low self-esteem from an early age, in addition to bulimia, which was the eating disorder he had.
Wow, a boy with bulimia. I've just never heard of a specific instance of that.
Yeah, I don't think it's talked about too much. No, in this case, people talk about it because of the growth hormones and stuff. But so Tyler had a habit of quitting hobbies and sports, and he would always say he just felt like he just wasn't good enough. So another, low self-esteem and that personality trait of just like giving up and probably having like, a meltdown about it and giving up. Yeah. So as early as 10 years old, in addition to the human growth hormones, Tyler was already being prescribed serious medication for acne, which I think was Accutane, which is like a big deal medication. It does a lot of effects on your body. And he was also prescribed with pills for depression, which was like given to him by professionals who really were trying to help him with his mental health. But Tyler's mom actually also had struggles with depression, and throughout her son's upbringing, she worried that he would be affected by her mental health struggles. And it whether or not, like
depression has a lot of like genetic
or social, because imagine just being around someone that's depressed all the time, and that's like one of the only people you're with at home. It's gonna affect you.
It's possible, but I think that there's definitely been a lot of cases where like somebody suffers from depression and like their kid who like doesn't hang out with them also has it. I think it's probably a bit of both.
No, I think it's a bit of both. Yeah.
But it's just, it's crazy to me, the idea that like a mental health problem could be genetic.
Yeah, I think that it's both. Like, I think if you have the right environment, the genes can be managed, I would say, or at least mitigated. That's in my experience anyway. But I definitely think it plays a role also in the fact that like she probably felt super overwhelmed, because I'll get more into it, but I think she just felt like kind of like a Todd Culhep's mother type of situation where she just didn't know what to do to help him. And that probably, I mean, it's very hard to help a kid that's struggling a lot, I'm sure, especially if you are, but it definitely doesn't help,
For sure.
So anyways, Tyler was definitely struggling from a very young age, whether it was because of that or not. But by age 11, he was already showing some behavioral issues. And he was doing things like graffitiing the school bathrooms, breaking people's windows, and also setting fires. So
setting fires,
kind of destructive. Setting fires is not a good.
So I've been reading a lot of John Douglas's work and stuff, and he says the trifecta for a serial
Yes.
killer is bedwetting, harming animals, and setting fires. And if you
Yeah,
have
I
all
mean,
three, like, dude, you're fucked. Like, you're for sure a serial killer. But any of those,
that's
science,
interesting.
not good.
Yeah. So we got the setting fires. Okay. So by age 12, he had started to self-medicate by drinking alcohol. By 15, he was smoking a lot of weed, which me too. So fine.
Serial killer.
We'll let that one slide. By 16, he was dabbling in Xanax, Percocet, and oxycodone, as well as ecstasy and DMT.
Oxycodone is so fucked up.
Yeah, I think all those prescription pills. It's probably so easy to take so many of them too.
Yeah, but like oxys are just like that's heroin.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, I think prescription medication is like the worst shit ever. Like overdoing it is really bad for you.
It's a really good series on Disney right now called what's it called? Something sick. It's about the company who created Oxycontin and like the effects that it had in specifically the Appalachian area.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And it's fucked. That drug is fucked up. I will never take it.
Me neither. Those things really scare me. But yeah, so the whole time, Tyler's parents were trying to help him. They had taken him to counseling,
Dope sick. Sorry, it's called dope sick. Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Those drugs are so scary, and they're prescribed to people. Like, I'm sure in small amounts it masks the symptoms of whatever people are struggling with, but it's crazy how it's
literally
so readily. Yeah, and it's so readily available, and so addictive, and not really
the company
given.
Just fucking lied and was like,
yeah, and they make a ton of money from it.
This is an opioid, but it doesn't have addictive qualities.
And yeah, that's what they said about heroin. That's literally what they said about heroin. Heroin used to be sold in the same exact way, and that's what they said. And then turned out everyone got addicted to it.
Yeah.
So anyways, I just think that must be having such an effect on him. But so his parents were trying to help him. They took him to counseling, outpatient programs. They had to meet with psychiatrists. And throughout his teen years, like I mentioned, he was officially prescribed medication, including hydroxyzine, which is a mild anti-anxiety medication, as well as citalopram, which is an antidepressant that has been known to increase the risk of suicide in adolescents and young adults. So he was on some like mood altering, behavior altering medicine prescribed to him, and then he was on a fucking ton of it not prescribed to him.
Damn. So two huge things here was what I'm seeing is his parents really give a shit. They're like, they're trying really hard
Definitely.
to help him.
Yeah.
But two, like that's a lot of drugs that is going into this person.
They want to help him. Like I definitely get that vibe, but I think they just don't know how to help him. And as he grew older, he was like they had less control over him, and his behavior was becoming more out of control, and they just didn't know what to do. Because they were turning to the professionals. They're like, here, like take him to this counseling, do this. But obviously it's like, he's not like, that's not helping him. Whether it's just because maybe he like doesn't have outlets in this fucking boring ass town, and he just has a ton of pent up energy, and probably all the other kids are doing drugs, and his peer groups are influencing that, and all the hormones, so anyways.
Yeah. And I don't really know too much about like medication for mental health stuff, but it does seem like there's a lot of people have to
young to be getting it.
Well, it's young, but a lot of people do seem to have to try different drugs and different mixtures and stuff until they find what works for them. So maybe it's a lot of doctors like experimenting with stuff,
right?
Like, okay, try this, and like if
that's the only way to do it. Like they don't have another way to do it. They just have to experiment essentially. So yeah, all of this is going on already. I feel like we're seeing,
some shit.
This is not
there's
normal.
A lot of drugs,
so many drugs throughout since his childhood. But his mental health struggles actually became like undeniable to the people around him when he got into high school. So people who knew him said that although he was on the quiet side as a kid, as a teenager, he had become really eccentric and unpredictable and attention seeking, doing things like having outbursts of mooing in class. So he was just like randomly like saying shit to get attention. And just like things that didn't really make sense. Also, his criminal history started to increase during this time, including instances of burglary, multiple instances of burglary, and also dragging a couch to the local wildlife preserve, dousing it with gasoline and setting it on fire, causing a fire in the wildlife preserve.
Those 2 out of 3.
Yeah. So a few months before,
if he intended to hurt animals, which sounds like he probably did.
I just don't think he cared one way or the other. Yeah. I mean, he definitely didn't intend to not hurt animals. Yeah. So a few months before the events of July 16th, 2011, in April, Tyler was arrested after getting into a fight at his friend's house. And since he had a juvenile record already, he was sentenced to a week in the county jail, followed by 2 weeks of house arrest, during which his mother confiscated his phone. Really, like, what I just have to say, like, I know I really do feel like his parents were trying their best, but just from his perspective, it's like, you think confiscating his phone is going to help him? Like, that's just going to make him feel even more like, you know what I mean? And it's such a like slap on the wrist punishment after he was already in jail.
Yeah, I don't know. I just like,
what can you do? Yeah, what can you do? But it's like, if your child has resentment against you and you confiscate their phone, which is like their connection to all their other friends, I just feel like it just builds the resentment even more. I honestly, like, spoiler alert, like, I think his parents really were doing their best. I don't think they were like, it wasn't like they literally didn't, as far as we know, they really didn't do anything wrong necessarily.
No, but and it's like, once your kid is like on some path that's like
that's crazy, the thing. Like, it just was toxic.
And then it's like, also like, you could try like 10 different things and like maybe one works and one doesn't, but you tried something else and something.
And he's so addled by all the drugs at this point too. It's like, he's not even like, I'm sure he didn't go like much time sober, right? Like, once he started using drugs, I'm sure he was high and drunk all the time, and like, he's not himself at that point. He's probably just growing more disconnected and more isolated and whatever. So here is a conversation that he had with his friend Isadora during the time his mom took his phone in April. Tyler, this was on Facebook because she tells me. Tyler, don't text me about drugs. Isadora, what happened? Tyler, my mom has it because I got arrested on Monday and she's flipping shit. I just got out today. Isadora, oh shit. Tyler, that fucking shit sucked. And then I just cut out some stuff that's not that important. She goes, you're so silly. What are you doing? And Tyler says, nothing, considering suicide. She says, why? Tyler, because I want to die, I guess. What other reasons are there? And she's like, are you being serious? Tyler says, yes, I want to die. I do want to die sometimes. She says, don't die, with 2 E's. Smoke a bowl whenever you're down, pea-face.
Little teenagers are so cringy.
It's like, what do you say to that? And Tyler's like, I used to. Now I just drink a lot when I'm depressed. It fills the emptiness inside me. Isadora, you're quite a character, winking pea-face. Tyler, yes, but all my smiles are fake. There's a bunch of like Facebook conversations out there. I put a few in here because I just feel like you have to. But yeah, so basically Tyler talking about killing himself, his mom being pissed about his mom taking his phone. That was in April. And then in June, from what I know, Tyler was just really drunk. And then his mom decided that she was going to send him into a mental health facility for a short term. Like, I think it was a week or 2 weeks. But basically there's this law in Florida where if your child is a minor and you genuinely believe that they're a danger to themselves or others, you're able to commit them for a short-term psychiatric hold. Right. So she got Tyler into a mental hospital. And at the time that they admitted him, she said, I don't believe that he is a danger to anyone else, but I do believe he's a danger to himself. So I don't know if she'd like seen his messages talking about suicide or it was just like all the other red flags. And I believe it was just after an incident where he was like really drunk and belligerent. And while Tyler was actually away at this facility, or shortly after he came back, his mom actually is quoted as saying to one of her friends, like one of the family friends, saying like, I think things are taking a good turn now. I think Tyler's like getting better.
Okay.
Which, as we will see, is not the case. I mean, as we already know, it's not the case.
No, we know how it ends.
So yeah. So just in general, not, like I said, not that much information is out there about Tyler's relationship with his parents. There's times where he showed affection towards his mother. There's an incident that like a family friend recounts where he like leaned on his mom's shoulder to just like chill with her. There was a time where he was talking about how he had taken her out for Mother's Day and it was really nice. But also there was a lot of issues in their relationship, clearly.
Yeah, it sounds to me like at best it was very rocky.
I think that's essentially the vibe.
At least 2 out of 4 people in that home suffered from some pretty serious mental health issues.
Right.
And at least one of those 2 people was not having a really hard time dealing with it, and that's Tyler.
Yeah. And not a lot of outlets for it, right? So, so we, like I said, we don't know a ton about the relationship with the parents, but we do know that Tyler was actually really open with his peers about some of his mental health struggles, because he told them, like multiple people other than just this girl, Isadora, there's quotes where he told people that he was planning or had considered killing himself. So I don't know if he told his parents that he's suicidal, but he's definitely telling his peers. And he also talked to multiple friends at multiple occasions about actually killing his parents. Like he was telling people about this. In one instance, he had said specifically, I want to kill my parents and throw a party because, quote, no one has ever done that before. So that was happening.
That seems to be such a common thing in a lot of these cases, especially when young people are
they're just telling everybody.
Yeah, they blab about it all the time. And everyone's like, I just didn't think they were telling the truth. And I think one thing people should take from that is like,
take it seriously.
Take it
just
seriously
in case
when someone says they're gonna kill somebody. Like, and I'm not saying like you have to run to the police, but like maybe tell a grown up. I don't know, like do something.
I just think it's better too. Yeah. So, but nobody did do anything. I think probably nobody took him seriously. They're like, Tyler, you're on so many drugs. Like you're just.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think. I just don't think anyone ever in my life, when especially like in high school or anything, was like, I think I'm going to kill my parents. Like nothing like that ever came out of the mouth of somebody that was my friend. Like,
I know somebody who, I don't want to say anything to suggest who it might be just in case they ever listen to this, but there were some weird warning signs with somebody we knew in high school, if you recall who I'm talking about. Okay, well, we'll get into it. I won't get into it. I just
the person who's currently
no, not that person. No. Somebody else. Okay, well, I'll tell you about it off the pod. Okay. I'll tell you who I'm talking about. I mean, okay, so oh yeah, there was somebody, and not to give too much away, someone we knew. There's just like some weird things about them.
So interesting. I have no idea who you're talking about.
But I think they turned out normal. So anyways, like I said, Tyler's mom had committed Tyler to a mental health facility around June, I believe it was. And then early in July 2nd, 2 weeks before Tyler would actually murder his parents, Tyler was complaining on Facebook that his mom had confiscated his cell phone again. Here is a conversation between Tyler and his friend Mercedes. This is what Tyler said about his mother. LOL, yup. She is a cunt for show, and I might kill her. So should I say that? Oh my God. And
a teenager thing to say.
Yeah, the for show is
for show.
It was spelled like that too. And then Mercedes says, OMG, no, jail, or I mean prison. LOL.
Oh my God. Oh, teenage, I hate you so much.
We definitely talked like this. And then Tyler goes, oh well, heart.
Yeah. And it's like, see, to me, if I was Mercedes, I'd be like, yeah, I don't take that seriously, because it doesn't sound serious.
It doesn't.
But you also never know.
Yeah,
I would at least, like, if that's now, knowing what I know now, if I was Mercedes, I would have like gone to my friends and be like, okay, like he says he's gonna kill his mom, like it's probably not serious, right? And then everyone else would be like, I don't know, he said it to me too. And then I'd be like, okay, he said it to a lot of people. Like, yeah,
maybe we should do something about this. But I mean, it's not their job to do anything about it, but
it's not.
It's weird how they're all so casual about it. But I
Yeah,
guess they
because
don't take him seriously.
and like teenagers say the most ridiculous shit constantly. So I definitely
Right.
don't. I'm not saying like you
And
guys.
Tyler was specifically saying erratic shit to get attention. So
Yeah,
these are the things that are quoted and taken out because it became relevant to what happened later. But I'm
I think
sure
I
he
know
was
who you're
saying all
talking
kinds of
about.
crazy shit. You figured out who I'm talking
I
about?
think so.
Okay, yeah. Well, we can talk about it after. Yeah. So, anyways, 2 weeks later at 9:40 a.m. on July 16th, Tyler had this conversation with his friend Matt on Facebook. Matt, did you do it? Tyler, no, but I'm gonna. Matt, bet? You really should now. Do it. Tyler, don't worry, I am. Then I'm having a party. Matt, yeah, party time. N-word.
The fuck?
It's just like, okay, there's only one thing there could possibly be talking about.
Yeah, Matt.
And clearly,
geez.
like the party and everything. Anyways, 1:15 p.m., Tyler posts a message on his Facebook wall. Party at my crib tonight, ... maybe. That was at 1:15.
That's really non-committal.
Yeah, apparently nobody believed him. Apparently everyone was like, oh, is he really going to throw a party? Like his parents are so pissed that he's constantly getting in trouble. They're not going to let him throw a party. So,
And like, maybe, like, why are you writing this? Wait till you're sure.
yeah, maybe.
So annoying.
Well, we know, like, I mean, he's obviously so fucked up. This is just like the littlest side of it. So yeah, as we know, at around 5 p.m., Tyler attacked and murdered both his parents with a claw hammer.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. After they were dead, he would later say, he wrapped towels around their heads and he dragged their bodies to the master bedroom where they lay on the floor with the claw hammer placed in between them. Because he probably didn't want to look at their faces after.
Yeah, for sure.
So Tyler then proceeded to clean up all the blood and gore, which he did a very bad job with. We'll have photos up on YouTube. There was like blood spatter and gore all over the house. Even though he claims he spent several hours cleaning, he just did like a really bad job.
But he's a teenage boy, so he's incapable of.
Yeah, that's true. And he was on ecstasy and just like super fucked, obviously.
Yeah.
So he then went around the house and gathered furniture, pictures, just random items from all around the house and threw them into the master bedroom so that a coffee table, bloody towels and pillowcases, coffee grinds, broken dishes, etc., all covered the bodies of his parents on the floor.
Wow.
Piled them all over. He then locked the door of the master bedroom. Then he took a shower. And when he was done, he stood in front of the mirror and looked at himself and laughed because he was completely deranged.
Just like, I can't imagine like doing those motions, you know, like.
Yeah. And what he'd later say too is that he took the ecstasy pills because he didn't think he could kill his parents sober.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I could kill my parents sober.
Yeah, I definitely couldn't.
Or on drugs.
Yeah, just in general. But so,
damn.
Yeah. At 8:15 p.m., Tyler posted another status update on his Facebook page. Party at my house. HMU. Hit me up.
Yeah.
So
he's sure about it this time. And so now everyone's like, okay.
Yeah. Well, one of his friends actually messaged him, what if your parents come? What? She's like, what if your parents come home? And Tyler responded, they won't. Trust me.
Oh my God.
Like,
that's so ominous.
It's so fucking ominous. Yeah. So soon after that, Tyler drove to an ATM with one of his parents' wallets, took out $5,000 of their money, I think, to buy alcohol with for the party.
It's a lot of alcohol.
He
especially in the States where it's cheaper.
I don't really know what happened with that money. I don't think he spent it all. And he picked up some of his friends to bring back home with him. It didn't take long for the house to be filled with people. Depending on the source, people say there was like between 60 to 100 people, which is a lot for like a pretty small house.
Yeah.
It was a huge party because even though a lot of people there didn't actually know Tyler or didn't know him well, they came because, of course, there was nothing else going on in the town.
Yeah.
Most people at the party didn't notice anything too strange going on in the house, but a few people did see some types of brown, sticky substance that could have been blood in a few places in the house, including the kitchen floor and in front of the master bedroom. And there were some kids who tried to get into the master bedroom, but since it was locked, they couldn't.
Right.
And the house was getting trashed. So it was even harder to notice like anything weird going on. Cigarettes were being put out on the rug. Bottles were getting smashed on the floor. It was just pure chaos, essentially.
Of course.
Tyler was, not surprisingly, acting weird throughout the whole night. He would go between acting really anxious and erratic and then being very blank-faced at other times. And he told several people throughout the night that he might be going away for a long time and not seeing them again, or that he was thinking about killing himself, and even that he did something really bad and would be going to jail for a long time if he was caught. But
he seems to like talk a lot of shit all the
time.
Yeah,
so it's like
you'd probably
okay, Tyler.
Like, oh, he's being weird again, like usual.
Yeah, exactly. So, and he didn't say anything more specific than that until shortly after 1 a.m. At that point, Tyler pulled aside his friend Michael Mandel, who had been
the one who, no, that was Matt who was
no, this is somebody else.
Okay.
Yeah. This guy, Michael, has been his best friend since they were 8 years old. So someone he knows super well. So they walked outside, and when they got to the end of the street, Tyler told Michael straightforwardly that he had killed his parents. Just fully admitted it. And Michael didn't believe him at first, or didn't want to believe him. But Tyler told him to look for the signs. He's like, if you look for the signs, you'll notice that something's going on.
Yeah. Plus, this kid's probably like drunk and probably on drugs too. So he's
for
like,
sure.
Imagine somebody telling you that when you're like high on drugs and drunk.
Yeah, it's probably so hard to take in. It's hard to take in sober, but
yeah,
let alone when you're, yeah. So first of all, Tyler pointed out that both his parents' cars were still in the driveway. So obviously Michael's like, if your parents are away, why are both their cars in the driveway? Then Tyler took Michael to the garage where he showed him a bloody footprint. He showed him the blood outside the master bedroom door. And then finally, he opened the door to the bedroom where Michael looked inside. He saw the pile of the household items all smashed and shattered on top of themselves. And then he saw a leg sticking out from underneath the pile.
Oh, poor Michael.
Yeah. At that point, he freaked out very fairly. Another somebody from at the party said they saw him running from the master bedroom looking just totally freaked out. However, he did not leave the party right away. He stayed for a while, I assume because he was just trying to decide like what to do with the information. Yeah. There was actually an infamous selfie that Michael and Tyler took at this point, which we'll show on the screen on YouTube. It's in the Google Drive if you want to see it, Madison.
Yeah, I'm going to go look.
This selfie is just very well known in this case, so I feel like it has to be talked about. But basically, Michael's looking at the camera. He's kind of like a defiant look on his face, it's been described as. And meanwhile, Tyler's holding up a cup, and Tyler just looks so anxious and stressed.
Oh my God, he is so skinny.
And he's very skinny, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So that selfie was taken. And shortly after that, Michael had grabbed a bottle of Percocet pills that Tyler had mentioned he was going to kill himself with. So I guess he retrieved these pills and he hid them in a closet so Tyler couldn't find them. And then around 1:45 a.m., he left the party. Also, I have to note this because I didn't before, but there were 2 dogs. So
the family owned.
Yeah, the family had 2 dogs. One was a black lab, and I think he just locked her in a closet. She was just like in a closet the whole party.
He didn't kill them.
I know, at least she was fine. And then a beagle, an old beagle, and the beagle was just like scared by all the noise of the party and just hiding in the bathroom all night.
I'm shocked if it was a beagle. It wasn't like,
ooh. Yeah, it was just like cowering in fear.
Those are so loud.
But interestingly, he did not harm the animals.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So parties going on, regular party stuff. As the night goes on, Tyler's growing more and more frantic, and he started frequently checking out the windows and pacing across the living room, especially after Michael left. He was like yelling at people to keep it down, wanting to turn the lights off. Obviously, becoming more stressed.
Well, I'm sure he's
Like-
growing stressed because he's like sure that Michael's going to go tell someone.
Exactly. So the party was coming to an end, and by 3 a.m., Tyler was by himself in the dark house where he turned off all the lights, making himself a sandwich.
He turned
The
the lights off to make a sandwich.
Well, he turned all the lights off because he didn't want the house to attract attention, I guess. I mean,
Yeah.
he was on so many drugs.
Yeah,
He probably took more throughout the night. I'm
Yeah, for
pretty sure
sure.
I read somewhere that he was taking more ecstasy throughout the night, which is
Yeah.
crazy. Because
Well,
even 3 ecstasy pills seems like a lot.
That's a lot. But
Yeah.
if I had like killed my parents, yeah, I'd be just like downing drugs.
You need a
'cause,
lot
like,
to, yeah.
as soon as you sober up, you're just gonna be like, what the
Yeah,
fuck?
you don't want to face that. So the next thing we know is at 4:40 a.m. when Tyler posted another update on his Facebook wall. Party at my house again, HMU. It's
Sorry, this was the
4:40
next-
a.m.
So
No, this is still
oh
like-
geez. Okay.
by 3 a.m. everyone had left, and we don't know what he did other than make a sandwich for the next like hour and 40 minutes, and then he posted that.
Well, he's probably like, I need there to be a party at my house because otherwise I'm just here with my dead parents.
Yeah. Oh my God. Can you even imagine? So
Ugh.
right after that, police actually arrived at the Hadley house because at some point after leaving the party, Michael had called the Crime Stoppers hotline.
Good man.
I believe somebody else had also actually called, somebody that got suspicious from all the shit he was saying.
Yeah.
So through the window, the police saw Tyler alone in the living room, pacing back and forth and muttering to himself with what was described as a very disturbing look on his face.
Oh, yeah, judging from that selfie, I can see that.
Yeah. As the police watched, Tyler frantically grabbed a stack of books, brought them to the back bedroom, threw them inside, and came back and did the same thing 2 more times. They saw that his eyes were very wide and he was not blinking. When they rang the doorbell, there was a pause, but then Tyler did answer. First, they asked if any adults were home, and Tyler responded, I know I'm going to Rock Road, which is the address of the county jail, so just take me. Tyler was then handcuffed in the driveway, and when the police entered the house, he shouted after them, you can't go in there, don't go in there. And when they went in, they found the trashed house and, of course, the brutally murdered bodies of Tyler's parents lying under a massive pile of their belongings.
Mm.
Of course, Tyler was arrested, and he was actually held in the St. Lucie County Jail for 3 years until he was sentenced. He was pretty much immediately infamous there, which he really seemed to enjoy.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So, yes. So he did talk in some letters about how like he had so much remorse. He even said, because I think he ended up having some type of like religious counseling. He said like the devil had told him to do what he did, all this stuff. He was, so scared and alone because of what he had done. But despite all of those claims, he was also obviously enjoying the new recognition he had.
Wow.
Yes. So in a letter to his friend, Tyler talked about his celebrity status at the county jail, saying, when the shit went down, it went worldwide. I was the second most popular story after The Economy.
The Economy.
Yeah. And then he started referring to himself as Hammer Boy and Hambo while in prison. And he was also known to sign autographs to fellow inmates with, quote, it's hammer time.
Oh my God.
It's just like, really, dude?
So other inmates were asking him for his autograph?
I don't know if they were asking or he was just offering
giving them out.
He might have
It's
just been
hammer
offering.
time. Oh my
It's
God.
hammer time. So, and apparently he did get like beat up and jumped at times as well. So it wasn't all good.
Teenagers are just like, there's nothing cringier on this earth than just a teenager being themselves.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah. And he is one of the worst.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I'm
meanwhile,
I'm done being a teenager. Holy shit.
We weren't this bad. We were not nearly this bad.
No, I was a pretty cringy individual. I for sure was. I was really
compared to this though.
No, I mean, no. Yeah, nothing compares to this. But
yeah, for sure. Me too.
I've blocked it a lot of it out.
Yeah. So while all this was going on, prosecutors were wanting to seek the maximum sentence for Tyler, saying that in his case, their focus was, quote, punishment, not rehabilitation.
Yeah. And he's under 18, right? This happened when he was 17.
He was 17. He was like 4 months before he turned 18. Yeah.
Okay.
So he ended up pleading no contest to 2 counts of first-degree murder. And his defense was that he was hearing voices and it was a drug-fueled psychosis that caused him to murder his parents.
Okay. So is that technically an insanity defense?
At least, if not a technical insanity defense, at least that's like the path he's going down. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
However, he received 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole in 2014, which was the maximum possible sentence because he was a minor at the time of his crime. So the death penalty was not an option.
Fair. I don't think you should kill kids.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah. So here's what the judge had to say about Tyler's crime. He said what Tyler did was brutal, heinous, and premeditated.
Yeah.
And he accused him of attempting to manipulate psychiatric experts and lying about hearing voices, which I think is fair to say.
Yeah.
So Tyler was then convicted and he was transferred to the Okeechobee Correctional Institution in Florida. However, in 2018, Tyler was able to appeal and he had a resentencing hearing. And this time he was sentenced to life again, but this time with the possibility of parole. So
was it 2 sentences of life with the possibility of parole?
Because
the first
I
one
didn't write it down.
The first one was 2 count. 2.
Yeah, it was 2 life sentences.
Hmm.
I'm not sure. Either way, it was with the possibility of parole.
Right.
I did not find when he might get parole, but he might be able to now, which would be fucking crazy. And he's our age.
And like the thing is, like if it's with the possibility of parole, like in Canada, right, when you get with the possibility of parole, I think it's like 25 years is what happens.
Right.
But sometimes, depending on the
sometimes
case,
you can get out sooner.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to know because there's like, it varies state by state, and also over time it changes, and like different circumstances change things, like COVID, people were getting out. Like, so who knows? But if this happened when he was 20, if he was sentenced when he's 20, like it could be like 45.
Yeah. God, imagine if he gets out.
But then there's always the very giant possibility that you do other things while in prison and then get things added to your sentence.
Yeah, that's true. So here are the latest updates of things we know about Tyler. This is really interesting to me. So his brother, Ryan, who I mentioned, who is 5 years older than him, actually has really stuck by him, at least from the latest updates we know. And Ryan has been quoted as saying that's what their parents would want, which would be for him to continue supporting Tyler. But he was the one who had to make sure that Tyler was written out of their will. Like he had to be the one to make that call.
Well, he's the last one, right? It's him and the dogs left.
Yeah. And he did, which is fair. So
Ryan, you get things out of a will of the people that you murdered?
No, you definitely shouldn't. And Tyler would write letters to Ryan saying about how he felt, he felt so bad for what he had done and all that. So he's still in contact with him, but pretty much the rest of the family all hate him, which I think is fair.
Yeah, I wouldn't be a fan.
Yeah. So Tyler has talked about, like I said, at times feeling scared and alone in jail and being remorseful, but at other times seems to continue to enjoy his infamy and celebrity status.
And do you think that it's possible that him talking like that and like talking about his quote unquote celebrity status in prison could be him like a defense mechanism for like
maybe
just trying to make himself feel better when in reality he's just terrified all the time?
It could be. Yeah. He seems pretty insecure.
Yeah.
And also he's not skinny anymore, actually.
No?
Ever since in the trial photos, he's like normal weight now.
Cool. Yeah, I guess. Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
He looks like
prison is not where you want to be like super skinny.
Yeah, I guess you're a target, but he looks like a normal weight now. He looks like a really, like, not a completely different person, but if you put a photo of the selfie up to a photo of the recent trial photos, Yeah, he's definitely, he looks like a different person. But yeah, his rule breaking behavior has continued in jail. He's been caught doing things like smoking weed. He's been caught with makeshift shivs, and he's been refusing to participate in at least some disciplinary hearings. So,
Well,
but
not a
he did
recipe
also,
for early parole.
I know, but he did also like get his SATs and stuff. So he's, kind of up and down. It doesn't seem like he's really doing anything crazy, I guess, but he also doesn't seem like he's behaving well.
Well, yeah, and I wonder like how he's dealing mentally, like all of his problems. Like,
yeah.
I prison doesn't seem like the place where you get like the top quality mental health resources.
Yeah,
I
but
don't
at
know,
least he
maybe
probably
some
has
they
more
do.
structure and accountability than
Yeah,
in
yeah,
that
for sure.
boring ass town with everybody just on drugs all the time.
There's more stuff for teenagers to do in prison than that town.
Literally.
That's
So,
terrible.
okay, so let me tell you what some of the local teenagers are quoted saying about this whole incident.
Okay. At the time?
Somebody, yeah, at the time or shortly after. Like kids who were teenagers at the time that this happened.
Right.
So one kid, Mike, says, I was like, damn, brother, that's creepy as hell. I can't believe we partied last night where there was dead people. He he says that after he gave an interview to a local news reporter, he got like 30 Facebook friend requests. And they were like, I seen you on the news, bro. I was like, yeah, it was awesome.
Teenagers are so shitty.
Yeah.
So
like, that's not how you should be responding to that.
I
and
got
then
30 Facebook friend requests.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
it was awesome. And then this other girl, a 16-year-old cheerleader, said, I wasn't upset when I heard. I wasn't scared or disgusted. It's not like I knew him personally. I was just in awe. Like,
oh,
okay.
all right.
Yeah. Okay. Yet another kid. Wow. I just went to the party of a lifetime. It's messed up what he did, but 20 years from now, I'll be able to say I was there. I hate Port St. Lucie, but that's kind of cool.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Is it?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, good luck walking around haunted for the rest of your life.
Yeah. They actually, in 2015, they demolished the house. But
wow. What did they say?
Yeah.
Why?
Because it was fucking haunted, obviously.
Yeah. Oh my God. That,
yeah. So that house isn't standing.
That is a haunted.
That house is haunted. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, what do you even do? Because like that land is haunted.
Probably. Yeah.
Like build whatever house you want. They're still going to be there.
I know. It has to be like Jeffrey Dahmer's murder apartment building. You just remain in a vacant lot forever.
Like
it's just cursed now. Like you can't do anything there.
No. And now it's like they have like little tours and stuff.
Oh my God.
They bring you there. It's Milwaukee.
To Jeffrey Dahmer's, you mean? Yeah. I don't know about this one, but yeah, they would have those tours. And honestly, we would go.
Yeah, I did the Charles Manson one when I was in LA. It was awesome.
So we can't talk shit about the tour because we would too.
No, I have nothing but respect for the tour. But
yeah. But yeah, that is the Tyler Hadley story. A teenager murders his parents in a senselessly violent attack and goes on to have a massive house party immediately after.
That's crazy. Because like I've heard of a lot of kids, there's a lot of cases of kids who kill their parents, but most of them, this seems like A, was clearly premeditated, not
yes, surprising. Definitely.
But B, like this whole having a party thing means like, you're going to get caught and you're basically accepting that you're going to get caught, especially like he's telling his friend or whatever. Yeah. And then it's like, okay, bye. Like,
well, he had the Percocet pills to commit suicide with too.
So yeah. So basically he was like, him killing his parents was basically in a way like him ending his own life.
I would buy that because he had so many destructive behaviors over time. Like you can just tell he's quitting everything that he ever tries. He's destroying stuff. He's vandalizing stuff. He's burning stuff. He's suicidal. Like he just wants to, he has like all this pent up stress and whatever, like unresolved teenage like feelings. He's had no outlets to,
It sounds like a kid who really wants to kill himself, but just can't bring himself to kill himself.
I think that's the case. Yes.
And then so he kills his parents because he knows like either I'm just going to go to prison or like die by cops or whatever.
Right. Because humans have such a strong survival instinct too. So I'm sure he
he couldn't make it in the world.
Right.
Whereas like there's so many kids, like there's that girl in Scarborough, like there's so many kids who are like literally trapped by their parents.
Yeah, like Gypsy Rose.
Yeah, and then they're like, the only way to like escape this is to kill them. Yeah, like
right.
Gypsy Rose, I'm like, that was like pretty justified, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
100. It's 100% justified.
yeah,
I
her
get
mom was
that.
like
Of course, her mom was a
piece of
fucking
shit.
monster. Yeah.
But then there was like that girl in Scarborough whose parents were like way too tough on her, and then she killed
Right.
them, or it was like she got her boyfriend and killed him or whatever. And it's
Right.
like, ooh, like sounds like they were pretty shitty, but like it's not justified. It's not like they were like yanking your teeth out and feeding you through a G tube for no reason.
Right. But so I want to talk about why this happened, but let me tell you a few potential reasons.
Okay.
Here's what Tyler had to say to one of his psychologists in prison. He said he thought that killing his parents, and obviously this is what he's saying, so I don't know if it's like necessarily true, but what he said was he thought that killing his parents would solve his problems and bring him relief. He said, I was probably mad about getting in trouble and everything that was going on. The murderous thoughts started a little bit, but increased in frequency, and it became an obsession that I couldn't get out of my mind. It was pretty intense. I thought about it every day. Tyler said, in the movie in my head, I planned to kill my parents and then back the car into the garage and then kill myself by carbon monoxide. So that's what he said. And then here's what one of his friends had to say. She said, he was under a lot of pressure and his parents would never let him be himself. And honestly, I think that they just caused everything. His parents always expected him to be something that he wasn't, and that's not right. Anything that Tyler would do, he'd be wrong for it. He just broke. Honestly, he got crazy because of it. If you have that much hate for somebody, then you actually would do something like that. And then what other friends would say was, it was the drugs. Tyler was on so many drugs. They just list all the shit he was taking, and everybody makes bad decisions on those. So those are what people who knew him and what he had to say for himself. And I think I just have to say his friends, I think it's interesting that they blame the parents, because I think it, like, obviously the problem is not, it's not that his parents aren't letting him be himself necessarily, because they're saying everything he does is wrong, but everything he does is wrong. But the reason that everything he does is wrong is probably because there's fucking nothing to do in the town. He's a kid kids have so much fucking energy. They need to be stimulated. They need to be doing things all day. Like, he doesn't have that. So he's probably, and then he's getting medicated.
Yeah,
so he's just getting stifled
to have like issues or whatever. He's got like, you know, these mental problems or whatever. And then you add on top of that town. Like, there's lots of kids in that town, and they're just gonna, like, you know, do the drugs here,
be delinquents,
like,
and
do petty crimes or whatever. But he's got all these issues on top of that exacerbates it so much.
Right.
I do find it interesting that he used like the term, like, I thought that it would bring me relief.
Yes.
That rings true. I like instinctually to me, I just, you know, kind of buy that that's literally how you're feeling,
how he feels. Yeah
because it makes sense.
Because I don't think it was a situation where like he hated his mom and dad. I think it was that he in general resented like authority figures overall.
Yeah, and his parents represented the biggest authority figures.
Like his parents don't seem that bad. They really don't. And they seem like they were really trying, but he just, like,
if you have that many problems and like you can't figure out how it's solved, like, and your parents are basically the gatekeepers of your life, like that's just who you blame.
Right. Yeah. And they didn't know what else to do other than to punish him. Like, they didn't know what else to do other than to be like, psychiatrist, deal with this. I'm taking your phone away. I'm putting you on, like, I'm grounding you. And so he's just seeing them as like they're trying to obviously discipline him and set him straight, but they don't obviously, like, what are you supposed to do? Like, to me, I would be thinking, okay, like, what is his social group? Like, all of them are doing drugs. He's not just committing crimes on his own. They're all doing it together. It's like, we need something else for him to do. Like, he needs something to do. He can't just sit
in a
there.
Summer camp.
Yeah. So I really think that, like, if you're going to ask me why he did it, I think it was a combination of, like, potentially, you know, all the like genetic stuff with the early, like, premature birth, the early separation, the like mental issues from an early age, all the drugs, and then like later the prescription and recreational drugs he was clearly overdoing, like 3 ecstasy pills at one time. That's fucked. And then with the environment, like the boring town, everybody, all the teenagers are all on drugs. They're all glorifying violence. Clearly, they're all like, yeah, he deserved to kill his parents. They had it coming. Like,
yeah, I
so
probably thought it was super cool what he did.
They did think it was super cool. So I honestly, my conclusion is I don't think it was really about his parents necessarily. Like, I don't think his parents were really bad to him at all. I think he was just like, he grew to be such a destructive kid who just had so much like extra energy, extra resentment, low self-esteem, you know? So
yeah, I would agree with you. It's like just a perfect recipe for like some sort of disaster. And that's an unfortunate disaster.
It is pretty crazy. And I guess like nobody else in the town snapped that way, but he definitely did. So
no, I do think there's something like, and whether like it comes from the environment or it comes from genetics or whatever, like it's, you got to have some sort of predisposition, and then like the environment exacerbates it. And like, that's not a very, you know, common thing. And most teenagers, like, even if they're like pretty bad, like they're not murdering their parents. Like you can do a lot of bad shit as a kid, but like, this is,
and you know what I even think, like, this is such a small thing, but he had an older brother, but his older brother was 5 years older. So probably at least if some of these kids had like more siblings, they would have just like a different upbringing. And like, maybe because Tyler also waited till his brother had moved out. So, you know, just even having siblings at home would probably prevent them from doing something like that.
Yeah. Siblings got it. Like they keep you in check.
Yeah.
They don't just let you get away with bad behavior.
I just feel like it would be different, or at least he'd have somebody to kind of like well, he'd have like that close relationship with somebody.
It must have just home. Like magnified all the issues he had with his parents. Like when there's extra people around, then like there's more to, like, you spread it out a bit more.
Exactly.
And, like, that kid deals with the parents, then you can relate to each other about how you deal with your parents. But like when it's just you, that's a lot.
Yeah. And you're already probably internalizing that you're the problem child.
Yeah, for sure.
So that is the Tyler Hadley story. Let us know what you think. We'd love to hear your feedback.
Yeah, and I'm so curious as to if this case that we're seeing right now in our location is going to be similar. I mean, it doesn't sound like this guy threw a party or anything.
I know. Like, well, we'd know because somebody we know lives below them. They would have heard a party.
Did you do it? We don't know.
So we'll keep you updated on that. And in the meantime, check us out on Instagram at Who's Knocking Podcast, or on Twitter at Who's Knocking Pod, YouTube, Who's Knocking Podcast. You will see all the evidence photos that we are able to share. So we have those on there. Mm-hmm. And send us an email if you want to, which would be at hello@whosknockingpodcast.com. And until next time, stay safe out there because you never know
who's knocking.
Bye.
This podcast is produced in collaboration with Lost Line Media. Artwork by August Digital. Music by Matthew Cook.